crazy how quickly the mood can change as a football fan, isn't it? Just 3 days after a demoralising draw against Brighton, solid win in the Champions League against Rangers tonight, and I suddenly feel a lot better about things. Don't want to get carried away, of course, but from the off, this performance felt different. It felt more like last season, particularly the first hour. The level of dominance that Liverpool showed against, fair enough, a weaker Rangers side reminded me of last season. Games when it felt like there was no jeopardy. Games when it felt like the result was never in doubt. That's what it felt like tonight. And that's why I feel a lot more optimistic after watching it. The main difference that really stood out to me was Liverpool's ability to win the ball back early. The press just seemed much more in sync. The midfield seemed more compact. There were less gaps at the back, less gaps between the lines, defence and midfield and forward. I said after the Brighton game that in general, we had to improve everywhere to get the season back on track. And I felt like that happened today in this performance. When Liverpool play more compact, when they press better, they win the ball back more frequently, higher up the pitch, and in a sense, that functioning system mitigates some of the limitations that we do have in the defensive end. And one of the prime examples of that is Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's been getting so much stick this season, and rightly so, to be honest, and I've been one of those people who've been criticizing him. But this was more like last season, where I think we know he's never been a top-class defensive player. But when Liverpool are functioning as well as they can, we dominate games. We dominate possession. The other team are always rushed into making decisions. They end up playing a lot of hopeful balls. When things are functioning correctly, we simply do not have to face a whole lot of defensive actions. And therefore, these defensive limitations, they're just not highlighted. They're not exposed. Trent didn't have a lot to do today defensively. And for me, he was Liverpool's man of the match. And what a great way to answer the critics. He's been getting so much stick to score that incredible free kick in the first half. I mean, it was top class. But on top of that, he had the most moments of real quality in that game. One excellent through ball, past multiple defenders into Salah, who was running behind his fullback at one point. He had a peach of a cross in the second half that was going right on Nunez's head. A lot of whip, a lot of power in it. It took a glance from the defender, though, to take it off Nunez's head. Probably would have been a surefire goal. Just overall, it was a classy display from Trent, full of quality. The other key reason why Trent wasn't exposed today was because we had Henderson playing on the right-hand side. And he was able to just cover for Trent every time he went forward. He was able to double up on the odd occasion that Trent was being run at by the Rangers winger. And Henderson just brilliantly just snuffed out any danger that was there. And I mentioned this after the Brighton game, but it's such an important point. We're suddenly playing Harvey Elliott instead of Henderson on the right-hand side of the midfield three. And that is, I mean, they're completely different players. Of course, Trent is going to seem more exposed. Of course, the right-hand side is going to have to deal with more attacks. But I guess the general lesson from this is, for sure, Trent needs to do better. He needs to defend better. He needs to be more switched on. He needs to take more pride in his defending. He needs to want to defend more. Sprint back when he loses the ball. Sprint back when he's out of position. But as a whole, collectively, the entire team can make his job a hell of a lot easier. And I think having Henderson there on the right-hand side goes a long way to covering for the fact that Trent is having to get up the pitch and then get back down to defend continuously in a game. That leads us on to the next point, which is the fact that Liverpool changed formation for this game. They played 4-2-3-1. First time they've done it this season. There has been a lot of speculation that Liverpool might switch to this formation this season because simply the personnel seems to be more suited towards that, particularly when all the midfielders started getting injured. What's one of the ways to counter that? Well, play two pivots. In this case, it was Thiago and Henderson, and they did that job extremely well. They controlled the midfield, they bossed it, they covered gaps. We just looked a lot more balanced with the two of them playing in there. And the second benefit of that formation is with the three forwards and Núñez ahead of them, that number 10 position can be played by so many different players, including Harvey Elliott, including Carvalho. Elliott can also play on the right-hand side of the three because there's not as much emphasis on having to score and assist as there is in a front three because you've got the extra forward player. So you're opening up another position for Elliott. I think Elliott can play the 10 position as well. And I gotta say, Jota played that role exceptionally well. It was one of the best performances I've seen from Jota in quite a while. He was good against Ajax about a month ago. But what I really liked about his game today, he's excellent for triggering the press. And he does everything quick. There was one moment in the first half where he came short for a pass. It might have been a throw-in. It went to somebody else, past him. But he immediately turns around and sprints forward looking for the flick on, which he then got, and Liverpool broke into space. I just like the way he does everything at speed. And that might be one thing we're missing with Firmino now. He used to be so good at pressing, but it does look like he doesn't quite have the energy to play at a very high intensity level now, especially when he starts. So Jota playing up front now, he does seem to offer that extra spark that Liverpool need. I liked how Liverpool played this formation today, and it's going to be very interesting. Are we going to continue with it now against Arsenal on Sunday, or even against Man City at home the week after that? I mean, based on performance, you'd say yes. Against City, though, if we do have four players up front, although it's going to convert more into 4-4-2 when we're defending, City might be able to play through that press quite easily, and it might leave us a bit more exposed at the back. So it's going to be interesting to see what Klopp wants to do. But I found the signs very, very promising. The other thing was with the four forwards, the distances between them all were smaller. And there were a lot more flick-ons and 1-2s being played amongst those players, which was something that we've been missing in previous games. It seemed a little bit disjointed with the forward players. In terms of individual performances, Van Dijk and Matip played well. They weren't really tested very much. Tsimikas, I thought, had an excellent game. Always available down the left-hand side. Had some good use of the ball. Played some good 1-2s as well. Thiago played well. I really liked Henderson's performance. Overall, very solid. Positionally good use of the ball. Salah played well. Got his goal with the penalty. Diaz played well also. Jota played well. Finally, Núñez. He had a good game, but he's going to be very disappointed that he didn't score. He had 6 shots today with 4 on target. And I saw a stat that Núñez is averaging 8.4 shots per 90 minutes for Liverpool this season. That is ridiculous. He scored in the Charity Shield and he scored against Fulham. I believe those are his only 2 goals for Liverpool this season. He's actually had 29 shots this season, so just the 2 goals. The Charity Shield goal might not even be counted in those numbers, actually. But there's 2 ways of looking at it. The first is his finishing has obviously not really been up to scratch so far this season. But the second way of looking at it is that he's getting in the positions, and it's only going to be a matter of time before the ball starts hitting the back of the net. Generally speaking tonight, he made good contact on the finishes. They tended to have some power behind them. Personally, I feel like when the first one hits the back of the net, he could easily go on a run. And we're looking at Haaland just tear it up for City this season. I think he might have, 17 goals or something already in all competitions, something crazy like that. Obviously Núñez isn't at that level, but I do see similarities though with Haaland. When Núñez makes those runs across the defenders into space, left or right, we seem to find him, and he always seems to be able to get his shot away. And at the end of the day, he's nearly 6'2". He's strong, he's powerful, he's quick. That physicality enables him to get shots off when other players wouldn't be able to. So even though it's not really happened for him so far, I am encouraged by the fact that he seems to get so many opportunities. He seems to just hoover up shots around him. Now, one of the reasons I believe we bought him was because although Salah and Mane and Jota have scored a lot of goals, you wouldn't say any of them are like lethal, deadly finishers, like a Karim Benzema or maybe an Mbappe or something like that. And I felt like, thinking of, say, the Real Madrid final in the Champions League, we just needed somebody who could get one chance, one goal. And we didn't really have it that game. And I felt like that was part of the reason we signed Nunes, similar to the same reason why Man City signed Haaland. They wanted a real out-and-out striker. Now, Nunes isn't looking like that right now, but he seems more like almost like a volume striker from what we've seen for Liverpool. But last season for Benfica, his shot conversion rate, I think he scored 34 goals in all competitions. His shot conversion rate was around 31.4%. That is outstanding. I think it was one of the highest in Europe, certainly based on a minimum number of shots taken. And if he can get anywhere close to that kind of conversion rate, he is going to be scoring a bucket load of goals for Liverpool. So it's not happened for him yet, but I see the signs there that he could explode at some point. My only concern in the game really was after about 60 minutes, I mean, we were 2-0 up at this point, but we sort of stopped playing, got a bit rushed in attack. You'd like to think at that point, to kill the game off, we'd just pass the other team to death, not let them get the ball. But we seem to be still a bit rushed going forward. And there were quite a few occasions where the forwards had the ball in dangerous positions. They were at the byline, Salah on the right, Diaz on the left. And they were kind of just cutting inside, taking shots when maybe if we just made one or two more passes, we would have created a really clear-cut chance. So I definitely think we could have done better, and it could have been a lot more than 2-0, to be honest. The other just slight disappointment, if I'm being picky, is the fact that after pretty much not allowing Rangers to have any opportunities the entire game, about 5 minutes before the end, maybe 84, 85 minutes in, we gave Rangers two really good chances in the space of about a minute. The first, Tsimikas brilliantly saved off the line, and then from the resulting corner, somebody had a shot from about 6 yards out, which Alisson did really well to save. And look, I know it's Champions League and anyone's going to be dangerous at that level, but Liverpool just need to be... We've been so sloppy with conceding chances this year. It's important to just keep the concentration and not give away simple opportunities. If Rangers had scored one of those and we made it a nervous last 5 minutes or so, it just would have been stress that we really, really didn't need and didn't deserve, having dominated most of the game. Overall, though, this was a very encouraging performance. It was just a lot more structured. It felt more solid. It felt more like Liverpool, the Liverpool that we know, the Liverpool we saw last season. It was just the second conclusive victory, I would say, that we've had this season where I never really felt like we weren't going to win. We could do it a few more of those. So it's just going to be interesting to see what formation does Klopp play against Arsenal on Sunday. The reason he played the 4 up front might have been because he knew Rangers would play 5 at the back and that we could press them all and we wouldn't get caught out in midfield. But judging from that performance, I think it's probably worth persisting with that formation again. I think it looked good, we looked dangerous, and we looked like our old selves. So good win for Liverpool. That's 6 points now in the Champions League. Let's beat Rangers again next round. That'll move us up to 9 points, meaning probably another draw or another victory will put us through in the Champions League to the last 16, which would be great. And now let's just try to get on track in the league. Bring on Arsenal Sunday. See you in the next video.